Hi everybody, I am your Miss Los Angeles Earth 2019. This is a video recap of the toxic tour that I was able to attend in Wilmington, California. Now Wilmington is 10 or less miles away from where I live. It's fairly small but has a lot of oil drilling going on, a lot of environmental impact, and you'll see in the video we take a big bus and we tour around the community and actually see how these companies are negatively impacting the environment and the people that live there. Throughout the video you will hear discussion of flaring of the different companies that are involved. We did take a trip to the Long Beach port. You will hear how a lot of these companies, when they do make mistakes, either they don't tell anyone and they kind of keep it a secret, or they try to pacify the community with, little trinkets like a gas gift card or breakfast burritos. This trip is hosted by CBE, Communities for a Better Environment. They are very knowledgeable, very kind, and they supplied us with a wonderful sandwich lunch that we had at a park nearby, and everybody that was on the tour seemed to be actually really interested in their communities, in learning, in their environment, and it was really nice to see. These oil companies keep it very, very quiet. They do not let their communities know when there's problems going on, if something is hazardous, if there's danger. They don't tell them. So the best way to be informed is to really get out there and learn yourself. I had a blast. I really hope you guys enjoy the video and maybe you'll learn a little bit of something, and maybe it will encourage you to get out in your own communities and be a little bit involved yourself. I will leave the link below to Communities for a Better Environment. It is a California-based environmental organization. And if you are interested or you want to go on a toxic tour yourself, which I highly suggest, I feel like it's very, very beneficial for me. And I really think that other people, even if you're like a 15-year-old teenager, I think you will enjoy it. I think you will enjoy the knowledge, and I think it is something of value. So if you get the opportunity to take a tour in your neighborhood, then go for it. And if there's no tour in your neighborhood, then maybe you should be the one to set one up. I will be making more videos of all of my adventures as Miss Los Angeles Earth. I hope to be extremely involved, very, very hands-on. I'm gonna do my best. Thanks for stopping by. See you guys later. Good morning. Okay, so it is almost, what time is it? It is 8:30. I'm on my way to get my breakfast because I definitely have to eat something. Today we are going on a toxic tour. Never been, super excited.
Thank you guys for coming to Wilmington for our first public toxic tour of the year, and it's happening at the end of the year. So thank you guys. It's a journey, right? It's a journey to get here. A little bit about Wilmington and ourselves before we get into our first stop. So Communities for a Better Environment is a nonprofit environmental justice organization that's in the state of California. We are fighting to not only create people power in our communities, but really advocate for sustainable, healthy, clean jobs and healthy communities as well.
So we just got off the bus and we are at John Mendez Baseball Park in Wilmington, California.
But this neighborhood isn't as safe as we all thought. Wilmington is currently standing on top of the third largest oil field in the entire nation.
But a lot of people that used to live in this area and still live in this area were dealing with a lot of health impacts. I was one of them. As a high school student, sleeping with our windows open was something that we were suggested not to do because particles were going into our eyes, and our doctor was even saying, well, considering where you live, maybe you should close your windows at night or in the day. Said back in 2007, when CBE learned that Warren was essentially illegally flaring, community members were the ones that not only contacted CBE but really started organizing to hold Warren accountable. Unfortunately, how Brandon mentioned, the AQMD, instead of trying to come and aid community, they were trying to assist Warren and trying to help them to get a permit to continue flaring. The community organized. We were able to not only get the AQMD and Communities for a Better Environment involved in this, but we also we're able to see how Warren decided to come in to the folks that we were organizing and decided to give some folks royalties and other folks nothing. And so they ended up dividing the community that ended up organizing against them, because they ended up giving some people, like in my house, they showed up and they tried giving us a lifetime, a year at least of free car washes. Because let me tell you, if you live in Wilmington, and I want you guys to look at the cars behind you right now, if you live in Wilmington, this soot is in your house, it's in your windows, it's in your plants, it is in your greener, it's everywhere and anything. It's in our bodies, right? 2 years ago, the soda refinery exploded. They had an explosion on one of their tanks. Did they notify community? No. Did they notify the local high school that's literally right here? Absolutely not. Did they inform anybody through any social media forms? Absolutely not, right? We had to do that. We had to notify our members that there was not only an explosion, but that they had to seek shelter. What ended up happening with DeSoto is we ended up suing the Air Quality Management District for permitting this expansion to continue despite the lack of support and the lack of information that we had for this project. Unfortunately, we ended up losing that lawsuit with the Air Quality Management District. Must get cleaned up in order for any type of project to be built on top of it. A lot of the time Superfund sites, in some cases, they will have fences and it will just say don't come here, like you guys can't cross, it's hazardous. But in our communities, a lot of Superfund sites don't have those signs or even these warnings, right? So if it wasn't for this particular community of the Carousel standing up and investigating, we wouldn't even know how big of a Superfund site we had directly across from us. And also Carson used to be a landfill for many, many years. And so the history of toxic pollution and toxicity is nothing new. We're really just beginning to uncover it.
So now I'm gonna talk about the crude oil spill that happened back in 2012. So I lived exactly right here, but the oil spill was more over there. It was right in front of the houses and all, right? So the pipeline belonged to Phillips 66, and apparently it was out of service for 15 years. But how can it explode if it's out of service for 15 years? So the cleanup and closing of the pipeline happened without evacuations, and to some neighbors, no neighbors knew about it. The cleanup went from morning to evening with no evacuation or announcement for shelter in place. Well, the neighbors right in front of the houses, they got a $100 gas gift card with breakfast burritos. Yeah, they, instead of an evacuation, instead of something, better, Phillips 66 contemplated the community with a $100 gas gift card and breakfast burritos.
And then one thing to also note about this particular oil spill is that it leaked over almost over 2,000 gallons of crude oil into this particular neighborhood. So the neighborhood that Beatriz was mentioning prior was actually the largest methane gas leak that happened in Porter Ranch. When that methane gas leak happened, within the day, there was 200 people that were evacuated within Christmas time. In our communities, evacuations do not happen. Wilmington, as I mentioned, is an extremely small neighborhood. We're around 9.14 miles. But despite that, us being that small, we are actually the reason why we're at the top 5% of the worst air quality. So our air pollution is that terrible that we're at the top 5% of some of the worst air quality in the state of California. Wilmington has, obviously, as I mentioned, 5 different refineries. Phillips 66 is just one of them, and Danny mentioned Valero, Tesoro, and Valero and Tesoro and even Phillips 66 have different parts of the refineries in Alameda, along the Alameda Corridor. And for folks that don't know about the Alameda Corridor, this is a particular corridor that was aimed to reduce port traffic. However, we still are dealing with over 13,000 trucks running through the Alameda Corridor in an hour. So in an hour, we will see around 13,000. That's like a peak of trucks that you'll see within that area. A little bit about this particular area. Aside from the refinery, any other polluting sources you guys may notice? The freeway! Right, exactly. 70% of cancer studies are directly linked to diesel exhaust. If you live 5 miles within a freeway, you have a higher chance of getting cancer in your lifetime. Unfortunately, our communities and our entire country and nation are dependent on petroleum and oil. But this doesn't mean we have to rely on it the entire time. Phillips 66 is one of many refineries, but it doesn't mean that we have to continue to refining oil. In a day, around 6,500 barrels of oil are refined in our refineries. We produce 1/3 of California's oil.
Now, I could try to explain this myself, but I think the best explanation comes from Hassan Minhaj in his Netflix TV series, The Patriot Act.
Of death. And here's the kicker. Even if we did extract all of our oil, we can't even use it all. We literally can't. I mean, if we literally burned all of the world's fossil fuels reserves, it would cause the temperatures to rise so much, it would make the planet unlivable. Remember, this isn't just a problem. It's a problem with a deadline.
So Wilmington may be small. People may not know about us and may not care about what's happening in Wilmington, but you wouldn't really have much if it wasn't for us. We need to start switching to alternative forms of energy because we also know that that's the healthiest way that we can survive and thrive, right? We need to get rid of diesel trucks and rigs and also cars that are emitting pollution and start driving things that are far more sustainable, like hybrids and electric vehicles. And we need charging stations in our communities too, right? Our communities don't have spaces to charge electric vehicles.
Okay, so we just finished the tour and it's very eye-opening to see what's actually happening in your neighborhood and the places where you live. Like, you kind of see it, but you don't know the full extent of the environmental impact that all these oil refineries and drilling and just pollution, you don't really see what's happening in the behind the scenes and who's the one making the decisions. And we really got to go around all of Wilmington and see, you know, how these companies try to pacify the community. You really don't see this in affluent neighborhoods. You don't see this in Beverly Hills. You do not see this happening in Malibu. It's really, you know, the diverse, multicultural city type of places that you're seeing the most impact and the most disregard for public safety and health and welfare. I'm excited to load this all up to YouTube so everyone can see, you know, what the tour was like and all the information that I was able to hear. But when it comes to learning about your own neighborhood, the only real way to know and visualize and understand that impact is to really be out there yourself, finding out this information from people who have been on the front lines this whole time.
And just a side note, look at this cemetery. You can't even escape pollution when you're dead.